I want to welcome to the stage Fred Schuster, the Regional Director of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Region 6. Let's welcome him to the stage to chat with us. So, Fred, thanks again. Tell us first, what do you do? What is the job of a Regional Director at the Health and Human Services?
Well, thank you, DJ. Thanks for the invitation to attend here today. So I'm the Regional Director for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for Region 6. There's 10 of us around the country. We've got the states of Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and of course Texas. I work for the administration, for the secretary. We try to coordinate the activities. We try to dispense the information, work with stakeholders and other political leadership and in the 6-state region, in a nutshell.
Yeah. So you are effectively the Trump administration's senior healthcare and health policy person in Texas, representing the administration here. How is sort of being the face of the Trump administration going? I mean, it's a very polarized time. This is a pretty red state. This is a pretty blue county. You got people on the left and the right that have opinions about the quality of the work of the Trump administration. So how is the face of that administration? How's sort of the leadership role you play going?
Well, I was fortunate to have some experience. I did the same job in the Bush administration in a different region, and it was also very divisive. There was you obviously have the two parties, and whatever you do in one, you don't make both of them happy very often at the same time. And the Obama administration, I think, learned that as well. And so all you can do is, you campaign on what you want to do as president for the next 4 years. You campaign on your changes, and as things come up during the administration, you come up with solutions. Vaping would be the most recent one just yesterday, and there'll be some more information about that coming out later. But the important thing is to try to do what the right thing is for the country.
Yeah, in the case of vaping, I think the administration said they were going to try to ban some of the flavors that were accessible in vaping products. How about opioids? That's been a topic that the Trump administration's been working on for a while.
Yes, and we've made some progress on it. We have about 130 people a day that have died from the opioid addictions. We've decreased the number of prescriptions in opioids. We've increased the amount of naloxone prescriptions. That's the antidote for an overdose of opioids. We released another $1.8 billion, to the states just last week. And we've actually dropped the number of deaths from 130 to 125. So we are making some progress. There's more progress to be made, obviously. And we also understand that it's not the only drug out there that's causing problems. We know that meth is also an issue. We know that alcohol is also an issue in various states and various parts of states around the country. But Congress has given us the money to fight opioids.
Yeah. Drug pricing is another one that the administration has leaned into in terms of regulation, and I think that there are 5 pharma lobbyists for every 1 member of Congress, at least those that are registered. So that is never a linear pathway when you try to take on the drug lobby. Tell us about the administration's work there.
Well, again, we've made some progress on it. Just a couple things. The Food and Drug Administration has approved a record number of generic drugs in 2017 and in 2018. So that puts more drugs on the market. We've had this hasn't been implemented, but this is another option, an international price index, where maybe on the average, Americans pay 180% more for the same drug that's in another country. So if we can work with the drug companies and say, if you get this deal to sell drugs in Great Britain, then you have to sell it for, less here in the United States as well, as opposed to whatever the market provides for. We've also had some setbacks in what we've been doing. We were supposed to, in July, have a new rule to go into effect. It was delayed by the courts. But if you, the rule would have said, these advertisements that would require you to tell you about the side effects of taking the drugs, that these advertisements would also require you to post your price on the advertisement. That got delayed by a court opinion. We're looking at importation of drugs from other countries, such as Canada. We got to be careful about that to make sure not everything that's labeled one way is necessarily actually what's in there, and you got to be careful about other ingredients. And it's good to have an FDA facility in the country where you're getting the drugs from to help make sure they're safe. And then the progress that we've made, two things that just came out. Number one, for the first time since 1972, this is from 2017 to 2018, the inflation for drugs actually went down. So that hadn't happened since 1972. And then there was a story out, I think last week, that the price increases in drug prices has slowed.
Yeah, interesting. Why do you think that is? I mean, that's probably a mix of policy and market activity. What do you think?
I'd say a couple of things, and this is just an FPO, Fred's personal opinion. But I'd say, number one, the talk of regulation by Congress and the administration, they generally support something going on. I think that's having some impact on the price of drugs, and I think some of the policies that we've had, increase in the number of generic drugs being approved, and those sorts of things is also a factor.
Yeah. It seems like, regardless of one's policy opinion on, one initiative or another, I would credit HHS with, having dodged many of the bullets of the kind of politics of personal opinion, meaning it's an agency that hasn't gotten swept up in some of the, again, the sort of cable news stuff. And at the same time, CMS in particular, but HHS overall, is making a lot of progress moving things forward. It feels like you guys just put your head down and you're just going to work. Whether people like that or not may be a different story, but it feels like you guys are just, kind of doing the work. Is that tell us how that machine is sort of, why does it appear like you guys are having so much success moving things forward, whether it's hospital or pharma pricing, value-based payment? Again, this is writ large and not just HHS, but also CMS and FDA. Why have so many more generics come to market? Is there anything in the secret sauce that you guys are doing differently, maybe in this administration versus the Bush administration in which you served?
The FDA, under the leadership of the retired commissioner, I think made it more of a priority. Maybe they were able to expedite some of the decisions. Some of this stuff takes a long, long time to be approved, and it adds costs to the drug, but it also, we don't want to give up on safety either, But how long do you need to wait? How long, should we wait before we approve of a drug that has good results? We still have opposition, like say a simple thing of advertising the price of a drug on the ad, that's contested. So, but I like to think that you're right in the policy that we've stuck our heads down and just tried to do what's right.
What I would be remiss if I didn't ask about immigration and detention of folks, which is a HHS issue. Let me just give you an opportunity to say whatever you'd like on that subject. It's been a headline issue, and it turns out HHS does have a role there. How much do you get involved in that, and what can you tell us about maybe how hard of an issue that has been personally to deal with, rather than get us in the weeds of any particular policy question? What has that issue been like for you personally?
Well, there is some good news on that front as well. We kind of geared up. We had a record number of folks trying to cross in May. I want to say maybe 140,000 or so. So we've got to have, there's two different departments involved for the most part. Department of Homeland Security, they get everybody initially. They give HHS the folks who are unaccompanied children. So they may have a friend, an adult friend with them, but unless they have a parent or a legal guardian with them, they're labeled as unaccompanied children. So we get those kids, and then we house them separately. There was a facility open in Carrizo Springs, Texas, which is very close to the Mexican border, and I did go to tour that along with several members of congressional staff and state legislators. Many of them, were Democrats, and they had an opportunity to see for themselves not what is reported in the press, but what is actually happening at the HHS facility. And I think they were surprised by how well the kids were taken care of. Now, since that time, and this is really the good news, well, let me say, too, that our job was to let these kids leave as quickly as possible. So we would find there was oftentimes somebody in the United States that they wanted to go live with. And we could verify that. We wanted to make sure there wasn't smuggling involved. We wanted to make sure there wasn't child prostitution or anything like that. So we had to, spend some time verifying that. But once we could verify that these kids were going to a legitimate place, a relative who was already in the United States, we would take 45, 60 days, and we could get them out. They were able to call every day, talk to somebody. They had the meals, they had the exercise, they had good housing. So that's different maybe than what you've heard about what happens at the Department of Homeland Security. But the bottom line is the president of Mexico, at the urging of President Trump, has sent troops to their border with where a lot of these kids are coming from. So that stopped a lot of folks from coming in. We've had a recent Supreme Court decision, that we could, concerning immigration and coming in and applying for status. So that's all slowed down so much to the extent that we were able to close Carrizo Springs. And so we're not expecting a large crowd of these children coming in anymore. So we're able to back down a little bit on how much storage we need for them and expense.
Interesting. Fred Schuster, Regional Director of U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you, sir, very much for coming and joining us. Let's give him a round of applause.